What's up, everybody? Jordan Stewart here from Vover. Thanks so much for tapping into the Vover original show. Just a reminder that if you want to drop your opinions about the episode or respond to the host and guests with your voice, go and download the Vover app wherever you get your apps. Vover, voice over everything. Enjoyed the show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Friday, July 16th edition of the Vover Wrestling Show. Ben Cruz here, the head of sports programming at Vover. And with me, as always, is Who's Next? Kenny Herzog. Kenny, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm terrible.
Is it because I introduced you like you were Goldberg's next opponent? I'm sorry.
No. I am I mean, it's too early to say. It's still only 1:54 Eastern time. There's plenty of time left in the day for things to get hairy.
There you go. Yeah. Optimistic as always. Glass half full type of situation. I like it. So, mentioned Goldberg, and he's unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, back because it is reported, but the good people over at Fightful that he will be Bobby Lashley's opponent at SummerSlam. I think a couple people were expecting it to be Brock Lesnar, but we've got another big name returning. I'm just going to ask it. How do you feel? Does Goldberg at SummerSlam versus Lashley excite you?
Well, I'm always excited to have a Jewish man in the main event, for one.
Okay, fair. Very fair.
Of course, now, I, as a member of the Jewish community, I would like to say that typically us in the Jewish community and my peers and allies in the Black community would like to try and come together and overcome stereotypes about any animus that exists between us. So, in a way, having a Jewish man and a Black man oppose each other in the main event might bust or reinforce some stereotypes. I'm not really sure. Most strictly speaking, in a wrestling sense,
yes.
Look, obviously Brock Lesnar's busy butchering, as we've seen on social media, and experimenting with his look.
Little man in action, yeah. With WWE, knows something we don't about Goldberg, being a whatever draw means to anyone these days, in terms of network subscriptions or pay-per-view buys or potentially butts and seats for this big event with people actually able to be in attendance. Beyond that, it doesn't excite me as a viewer. I don't know that I necessarily am going to be glued, but I'm just always trying to zoom out and look at it from the perspective of the business. That's all I got. That's the best I got. I did see that his contract does call for him to be called on twice a year by the WWE. So they already kind of used that once early on at the beginning of this year. I guess this is their second time using it. And why not for what is their second biggest pay-per-view of the year in what's going to be their biggest arena in front of fans at that point, right? Like the Allegiant Stadium in Vegas, which is going to be, a lot of people there. I get it. And I think his name elicits a reaction, which I guess is the point, whether you hate watch it or you're still, I don't know, a Goldberg stan out there. It does make sense.
Or if you're Stan Goldberg.
Or if you're Stan Goldberg, which is, I'm sure there is Stan Goldberg. If you're a listener and you'll be watching SummerSlam with Goldberg in the main event, let us know. But I'm with you. I've been out on Goldberg matches for a couple of years now. It's just a tough watch, and that allure that was around him during his heyday in WCW, and maybe it's just because I'm a jaded old man at this point. It's gone. But I guess there are a section of wrestling fans who do want to see him wrestle, and it'll be a quick 5 minutes with two big dudes, and I think that it's enough to draw, I suppose. But man, I just think the only thing that would excite me about this is, and we'll do some fantasy booking for Money in the Bank here, Big E wins, right? Let's just say Big E wins, and Big E cashes in on Goldberg after Goldberg beats Bobby Lashley. Sign me up for that, because Big E he's had this running joke about wanting to face Goldberg for years now that he's been doing on Up Up Down Down and on the New Day podcast. So if that all comes to fruition, sign me up. So that's me fantasy booking real quick here on a Friday.
And if Big E wins, then Goldberg officially has to actually drop the E from his name. So it'll be more like a hip hop sort of portmanteau of his name, Goldberg.
Yes, same pronunciation, just missing one letter. I like this. Yeah. Now we're fantasy booking beyond what fantasy booking actually calls for. So
ASAP Bird.
Yes, exactly. I'm in on that. I love that stipulation more than the actual cashing in. So Goldberg, first, let us know before I forget. Let us know what you think about Goldberg coming back or reportedly coming back for SummerSlam. Let us know your thoughts on there. But before we get out of here, Dynamite just had Fyter Fest night 1 this past Wednesday, and I know you had some thoughts on it. It was a pretty solid show, solid card, and but wanted to toss it over to you to get your thoughts on how night 1 went of Fyter Fest.
Well, I mean, look, it came out hot. I did a little tweeting about it, delight of no one. That so I can easily reiterate it here. That that was about as good a booking for an opening 20 minutes of ultimately, ordinary primetime episode of a wrestling show as you're going to get. Moxley, that's a banger of a return. You've got the backdrop of his history with Carl Anderson. You've got the sort of context of the Bullet Club wanting the IWGP, U.S. title. It all really gelled. You had a chance for what's his face, Eddie Kingston, to do a run in and kind of put things in the here and now of what the animus is between them, at the moment. And the crowd was hot. I mean, look, I have to admit that all this is tinged with a little bit of like, in the last 2 weeks, active cases of COVID in Texas have jumped from a couple of hundred a day to a few thousand a day. So there's a little bit that makes me go, and I want to enjoy it, and that there's a live crowd. I'm like, but that set the tone. It was a good night. No one knows still what the meaning or significance of Fyter Fest is, because it's not a pay-per-view, but it is sort of a special episode of Dynamite. And now it's over 2 installments. But without getting in the weeds of every single match on the card, I thought it was a well-rounded, I thought it was a good, solid Dynamite episode of AEW. AEW. I just pulled the JR. No offense,
yeah. There you go. Great use of an adjective there. What was your match of the night? For me, I kind of really dug the FTW match, the title match, if you will, between Starks and Cage. And see, I guess Cage is out of Team Taz, right? It looks to be that way, but I've never fully. I mean, the importance of that belt really hasn't impacted me as much since Cage was handed it. But kind of him losing it kind of made me feel something. I don't know. It was it was interesting to kind of take in.
Yeah, I mean, as far as that goes, I felt like the outcome was fairly telegraphed. It's been telegraphed for weeks, perhaps. But this is great. This is Brian Cage's way of saying, you have that. I don't need your fake title. I'm going to go after something real. And we'll see what he can do as a fan favorite. And Team Taz, I think, just gets to be a little leaner and more fleet now, and not have too many moving parts. I do want to add that it was really remarkable to see. Talk about people that I was old enough to see in their prime, but other people weren't. But maybe everyone could walk away happy. I thought the Hardy and Cage match was, about as crisp and well executed as you can get, which doesn't sound like it was very exciting, but it was good. It was a good, exciting, almost flawless match. So there was a lot of good stuff. The Malachi Black stuff is starting to work for me. It was a bit, as we discussed last time, a little bit sort of like jumbled in the rollout, but it's gelling now, and Cody brought the heat. So, good stuff. And I don't want to leave out the ladies. Britt's continuing to do, phenomenal work. Yes. Rose seemed pretty fierce, even though she had to lean into her beast gimmick with some corny, wordplay, but it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. Really, really solid episode of Dynamite. Made me excited about night 2. Which is coming up soon. So Kenny, thanks as always for joining us on the Friday edition of the Vover Wrestling Show, and have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody, and get vaccinated so we don't get more people sick.
There we go. Always. Thanks, Kenny. 1, 2, 3.